there is always a silence before the truth arrives. Not the comforting silence of rest, but the suffocating stillness that presses against your chest, as though the very air has grown heavier. A silence that does not soothe, it warns. It tells you without words that once spoken, the truth can never be unspoken again. It is in this silence that humanity trembles. For centuries, kings, priests, and lovers alike have tried to bury it, wrapping it in rituals, disguising it with promises, drowning it in prayers. But the silence always returns. It sits beside you in empty rooms. It waits in the pause between words. It hovers in the glance you refuse to meet. What is this truth? It is the knowledge you already sense but have spent your life avoiding. The knowledge that power is not kind, not merciful, not divine. Power is ruthless, and it belongs not to the gentle, but to the willing. This is the lesson Machiavelli tried to whisper into the ears of rulers long ago. A whisper so dangerous that even now, people call it immoral, corrupt, evil. But morality is a veil. Silence strips it away. And yet most of you would rather cling to the lie. You tell yourselves that love is enough, that honesty protects you, that loyalty endures. But let me ask you, if love is enough, why do lovers betray each other in the dark? If honesty is sacred, why do leaders build their empires on lies? If loyalty is eternal, why is the grave filled with the betrayed? The silence knows the answer. Because beneath all your hopes and illusions, there is a force older and stronger than them all, the hunger for control. It is not taught. It is born within you. Even a child, before it knows the meaning of morality, screams to control the attention of its mother. That cry is the first sound of power. Everything after, love, trust, even faith, is a mask we place upon this hunger to make it appear noble. Dull. But silence reveals it. Silence peels away the masks. That is why people fear it so deeply. They fill their lives with noise, distraction, endless chatter, because if they are left alone with silence, the truth begins to crawl out of the shadows. It whispers in their ears. You are not as pure as you pretend. You want control. You crave it. You cannot deny it. This is where our lecture begins, in the forbidden silence. If you continue listening, you will cross a threshold. You will not leave as the same person who entered. You will not be able to return to the soft comforts of ignorance. You will know too much, and knowledge, once tasted, is impossible to spit out. So I give you this warning. Turn back if you value your illusions. Leave now, and return to the safety of comforting lies. Because what follows is not for the innocent. It is for those who are willing to see, even if seeing destroys them. Do you still remain? Good. Then the silence has already chosen you. But silence is only the beginning. Because once the silence fades, another figure emerges from its shadows. A smiling face, too perfect, too familiar. A mask. And behind that mask lies the first betrayal of human nature. And yet, silence itself is the first weapon of power. From the silence a face emerges, not the monstrous kind you expect from nightmares, but one that smiles, warmly, reassuringly, almost beautifully. It belongs to a friend, a lover, a leader, someone you trust. But the longer you stare, the more you sense something beneath that smile, something carefully hidden. This is the face behind the mask. Machiavelli wrote that a ruler must learn to be both the lion and the fox. The lion commands strength, but the fox survives by deception. Power, he warned, is never held by the strongest alone. It is kept by those who master the mask. The appearance of virtue matters more than virtue itself. People do not want the truth. They want the illusion that soothes them, and so the mask becomes more valuable than the face. Think of the people you know. Which of them has ever truly shown you their unfiltered self? Even in your own life, how often have you concealed a thought, a desire, a fear, just to keep the peace or to gain approval? Do you see? Every one of us is born with a mask, and the world teaches us to refine it until it becomes indistinguishable from our skin. But the danger lies not in the mask itself. The danger lies in forgetting it is a mask. The faithful wife who smiles while hiding her secret longing. The loyal friend who nods while secretly envying your success. The leader who promises peace while preparing for war. They do not lie outright. Their mask simply speaks for them. And because we prefer the mask to the raw, unsettling truth, we believe them. We want to believe them. But masks have a way of slipping. In moments of weakness, a trembling hand, a broken voice, a sudden silence, the truth leaks through. That is when you see it. The shadow behind the smile, the hunger behind the kindness, the resentment behind the loyalty. And it terrifies you. Not because you've discovered a stranger, but because you rats. Elise, the stranger, was there all along. Here is the cruel paradox. The people you trust most are the ones you know the least. The mask they wear is crafted not for the world, but for you. They know exactly what you wish to see, and so they give it to you. That is why betrayal cuts so deeply, because it doesn't come from enemies. It comes from the faces you once kissed, once trusted, once followed. And yet, we cannot live without masks. Imagine a world where every desire, every selfish thought, every cruel impulse was revealed in the open. Civilization would collapse overnight. No marriage could endure, no friendship could last, no leader could rule. The mask is not only deception, it is survival. This is why the mask is more powerful than the face. The face is weak, trembling, flawed. The mask is untouchable, crafted to perfection, immune to shame. The face hides in the dark. The mask walks in the light. The world does not belong to those who are genuine. It belongs to those who can wear their masks without ever letting them slip. But here lies the chilling truth. Once you understand the power of the mask, you face a choice. You can continue wearing yours, hoping it never cracks, or you can begin to rip away the masks of others, exposing what lies beneath. The first path gives you safety. The second gives you power. Which one will you choose? Be careful, because the moment you strip someone of their mask, you awaken something far older, far darker, something humanity has always tried to escape. For when the mask falls away, what remains is fear. But when the mask slips, it is never the monster you expect to see. When the mask falls, it does not reveal freedom. It reveals fear. Fear. That invisible hand that shapes every choice you've ever made. We like to believe we are guided by love, morality, or reason, but strip those away, and what remains is the trembling pulse of fear. Fear of loss, fear of shame, fear of being powerless in a world that devours the weak. Machiavelli asked a question centuries ago. Is it better to be loved or to be feared? His answer was not gentle, not poetic. It was sharp, practical, merciless. He wrote that love is fragile. It fades, it wavers, it breaks under pressure. But fear? Fear endures. Fear chains loyalty where affection fails. Fear is the currency by which empires are built and maintained. Think of the bonds that shape your life. The child who obeys a parent does not do so out of pure love. They fear punishment, withdrawal, abandonment. The citizen who follows the law does not do so because of respect. They fear the prison, the noose, the gun. Even in love, perhaps especially in love, fear is the hidden master, the fear of betrayal, of rejection, of being replaced. Without fear, the illusion of stability collapses. And yet, fear is not merely an instrument of rulers and tyrants. It is the shadow companion of every human soul. Look closely at yourself. How many choices did you make out of courage? How many more did you make because you were too afraid to do otherwise? You chose the safe job over your dream. You stayed silent when you should have spoken. You lied because the truth would cost you too much. You tell yourself you were wise, but the silence knows better. You were afraid. This is why fear is the truest form of power. It does not require permission. It does not beg for love or loyalty. It simply waits inside you, bending your will, shaping your path. Rulers understood this long before Machiavelli wrote it. Kings, priests, and generals all discovered the same secret. To control the people, you need not persuade them. You only need to make them afraid. But here lies the paradox. Fear does not always bind. Sometimes it breaks. Push a man into fear long enough and he will submit. Push him further, and he will rebel with a violence you cannot predict. That is the double-edged blade of fear. It makes slaves, but it also makes traitors. And that is where betrayal is born. Because fear alone cannot hold forever. The friend who fears being overshadowed by you will one day stab you in the back to escape that fear. The lover who fears abandonment will betray you first, just to avoid being the one left behind. Fear does not remain hidden in the shadows. It sharpens into action, into knives, into poison slipped into the cup. And so fear becomes the silent architect of betrayal. Every story of treachery is written first in the language of fear. The man who betrays his country fears losing power. The woman who betrays her vows fears being forgotten. The friend who betrays your trust fears living in your shadow. Strip away the excuses, the justifications, and what remains is always fear. This is the cruel design of human nature. We betray not because we hate, but because we are afraid. Fear whispers to us that survival matters more than loyalty, more than love, more than truth. And when survival and loyalty collide, loyalty always dies first. Fear is the seed. But betrayal is the harvest. No empire, no marriage, no friendship is ever destroyed in an instant. It begins slowly, like a crack spreading silently through glass. At first, everything seems intact. The smiles remain. The handshakes are exchanged. The words of loyalty are repeated. But beneath the surface, something is shifting. Fear has already begun to carve its path, and the knife is waiting. Betrayal is never born from strangers. The stranger has no reason to betray you. They have nothing to gain from your downfall, nothing to take from your trust. No. Betrayal wears a familiar face. It is the friend you confided in, the lover you held at night, the ally you depended on. They already have your trust, your secrets, your defenses lowered. That is why they alone can pierce your heart. Consider history. Great rulers did not fall to foreign invaders first. They fell to the advisors who stood beside their thrones. Julius Caesar was not struck down by enemies in battle, but by senators he had dined with, men who called him friend, brother. And it was not the final wound that killed him. It was the sight of Brutus, the one he loved most, with a blade in his hand. The betrayal mattered more than the blade. That is the nature of betrayal. It is intimate. It cuts not only the body, but the soul. The wound festers because it carries recognition. You gave them the weapon. You let them close enough to strike. And when the knife enters, it is not steel that burns, but trust. But do not mistake betrayal as weakness. It is, in truth, a form of strength, a brutal calculation of survival. The friend who betrays you is not simply cruel. They are afraid of being crushed beneath you. The lover who betrays does not always hate you. They are terrified of being abandoned. Betrayal, like fear, is survival disguised as treachery. This is why betrayal always feels inevitable in hindsight. The signs were there. The nervous glances, the trembling hesitation, the sudden silence in conversation. But we ignore them, because to see them would mean accepting that love and loyalty are fragile illusions. And so, we blind ourselves until the knife is already pressed against our back. Yet here lies the darkest truth. Betrayal changes you. The first time you are betrayed, something inside you dies. You lose not only the person who betrayed you, but also the part of yourself that believed in them. And that death is permanent. You will never again trust so easily, never again love without suspicion. Betrayal kills innocence, and in its place grows something colder. The desire to control, to anticipate, to manipulate before someone can harm you again. This is how betrayal spreads. It does not end with one knife. It transforms its victim into another betrayer, passing the wound like a plague through generations. The betrayed child grows into the betraying adult. The betrayed friend becomes the betrayer of others. Betrayal is contagious, and once it touches you, it never lets go. But there is something even more disturbing. Some people learn not only to endure betrayal, but to master it. They discover that betrayal is not simply an accident of fear, but a weapon, a tool of strategy. To betray at the right moment, to break trust with precision, is one of the most effective forms of power. For what better way to dominate someone than to give them hope, and then take it away? This, too, Machiavelli understood. He did not glorify betrayal, but he knew it was inevitable. He knew that rulers must prepare not only to be betrayed, but to betray when necessary. To survive, you must sometimes be the hand holding the knife, rather than the back receiving it. Do you see where this path leads? Once betrayal becomes a weapon, human relation, and ships themselves transform. Love, friendship, loyalty. They become theaters, performances where every gesture hides a motive. The knife is no longer an accident. It becomes part of the stage, and that is where we must go next, to the theater itself, to the world where every kindness is a script, every smile a mask, every loyalty rehearsed. And when the blade finally enters your back, it carries your own name. Betrayal is the knife, but manipulation is the theater in which the knife is concealed. Every betrayal that has ever taken place was rehearsed long before the blade was drawn. A word here, a glance there, a carefully timed silence, all part of the performance. And in this theater, there are no innocent actors. Each of us, knowingly or not, plays our role in the endless drama of control. Think of your daily life. When you speak kindly to someone you secretly despise, is that honesty? No. It is manipulation, a mask of civility to achieve your purpose. When you flatter a superior, when you hide your true thoughts from a lover, when you exaggerate your pain to gain sympathy, what is it if not manipulation? Do you see now? It is not the tool of monsters, but the language of survival. Machiavelli himself admitted this openly. He advised rulers not to truly be merciful, faithful, or honest, but to appear so. The appearance of virtue is more powerful than virtue itself because people judge not by truth, but by perception. The theater matters more than the actor. And yet, the theater is not confined to palaces and courts. It is in your home, in your workplace, in your most private relationships. The mother who manipulates her child with guilt. The friend who manipulates with secrets. The lover who manipulates with silence. Each stage is smaller, more intimate, but the performance is the same. Here lies the unsettling truth. Manipulation does not destroy relationships. It sustains them. If every thought were spoken aloud, if every selfish motive were exposed, human bonds would collapse in a single night. It is manipulation, the delicate dance of concealment and persuasion that allows them to survive. The theater is the glue of civilization. But every theater has a cost. The more skilled you become at manipulation, the less you trust the stage of others. You begin to see the strings behind the smiles, the motives behind the words. The curtain rises, and suddenly you no longer believe in the play. You watch your own life unfold as a series of scripted acts, and in every act, you search for the hidden hand that controls you. And once you begin to see it, you can never unsee it. This is why manipulation corrodes the soul. The manipulator gains control, but loses innocence. The one who sees the theater can never return to the comfort of believing in sincerity. Even love becomes suspect. Was that kiss genuine, or was it meant to keep you obedient? Was that tear real, or was it part of the performance? Was that declaration of loyalty true, or only another line in the script? The answer does not matter. What matters is that the question never leaves you. And when love itself becomes theater, something dangerous awakens. What begins as affection turns into calculation. What begins as desire transforms into obsession. The manipulator who learns to bend hearts with words and gestures eventually discovers that the most intoxicating stage of all is love. Because love, more than fear, more than loyalty, offers the deepest control. But obsession is not kind. It is not beautiful. Obsession is love turned inward, twisted into possession, burning until it consumes both the lover and the beloved. Manipulation does not end on the stage. It spills into the heart, setting fire to everything it touches. And that is where we must go next, into the flame itself, into the forbidden fire of obsession, where desire becomes a chain and the theater turns into a prison. Ask yourself then, who is pulling your strings even now? Manipulation sets the stage. But obsession is the fire that burns the stage down. At first, it begins gently. A glance held too long, a thought that lingers in the mind when it should have faded. You tell yourself it is love, passion, devotion. But true love breathes. Obsession suffocates. True love allows freedom. Obsession builds a cage and locks the door. This is why obsession is forbidden. It does not reveal itself as danger, not at first. It enters your life as warmth, comfort, intensity. But slowly, almost imperceptibly, it grows hungry. It feeds not only on your desire, but on your time, your sleep, your freedom. It demands more and more until there is nothing left that is not consumed by it. Consider the lover who checks the phone every hour, waiting for a message that never arrives. Consider the man who stalks shadows because the thought of being replaced drives him to madness. Consider the woman who cannot sleep because she imagines betrayal in every silence. They call it love, but it is not love. It is fire, and fire destroys. Obsession blinds you to everything else. It whispers that you must possess, must control, must dominate the one you desire. It convinces you that without them you are nothing, and with them you are everything. The world collapses into a single figure, a single voice, a single touch. And when that figure withdraws, even slightly, the obsession grows violent. The fire, once hidden, begins to scorch. Machiavelli understood this in Rulers, though he spoke of power rather than love. He knew that obsession with control breeds recklessness, that leaders consumed by their own hunger eventually destroy themselves. But what he wrote of power applies equally to the heart. For obsession is not about the beloved, it is about the self. The object of desire is only the mirror in which the obsessed person sees their own hunger reflected. And yet, obsession holds its own terrible beauty. There is a reason poets and artists speak of it with such reverence. For in obsession one feels alive, every nerve heightened, every thought sharpened. To burn is still to feel. Many would rather destroy themselves in fire than return to the gray, empty silence of indifference. That is the cruel seduction of obsession. It feels like truth even as it kills you. But here lies the deeper tragedy. Obsession does not simply consume the obsessed, it consumes the beloved as well. To be the object of obsession is not to be loved, but to be imprisoned. Every movement is watched, every word dissected, every silence interpreted as betrayal. It is not affection, it is captivity. The one who is loved most intensely is, in truth, chained most tightly. And chains, whether of iron or of passion, always leave scars. The end of obsession is inevitable. It either burns out, leaving ashes of regret and loneliness, or it burns so violently that it destroys both parties, the obsessed and the object alike. And in the aftermath, what remains is not love, nor even desire, but guilt. The guilt of having surrendered to fire, of having sacrificed freedom, dignity, and reason to a flame that was never love to begin with. That is where obsession leads, to guilt. The kind that follows you into silence, the kind that whispers in your ear at night, the kind that reminds you that you crossed lines you swore you never would. And guilt, unlike obsession, does not burn quickly. It lingers, it festers, it carves its prison inside your mind and locks you within it. And that is where we must now go. Into the mirror, where guilt reflects not only your sins, but the truth you have tried to bury. And the cruelest part of obsession is that you chain yourself. Obsession ends not in fire, but in silence. And in that silence, something darker takes its place. Guilt. Guilt does not roar like obsession, nor blaze like betrayal. It whispers, it seeps, it crawls beneath your skin until every breath you take feels borrowed, every reflection you see feels corrupted. The mirror becomes your judge. You look into it, and you no longer see yourself. You see the version of you that surrendered, that yielded to desire, that crossed the threshold you once swore you never would. It is not just your actions you regret. It is the self you betrayed to commit them. This is the essence of guilt. It chains you, not with external locks, but with the prison you build inside your own mind. And unlike obsession, which feeds on hunger, guilt feeds on memory. Every detail of what you did, or what you allowed to happen, returns to you, sharper, crueler, impossible to erase. Think of the ruler who, in pursuit of control, crushed an ally only to realize the kingdom was weaker without them. Think of the lover who consumed the beloved with jealous fire, and then, in a moment of clarity, saw the ash left behind. These people may hold power, may hold victory, but inside their chest lies a hollow that no triumph can fill. For what they have destroyed cannot be rebuilt. Machiavelli hinted at this without ever naming it directly. He spoke of rulers making decisions without conscience when necessity demanded. Yet even the coldest strategist, even the most ruthless prince, was still human. And when the silence returned, when the palace halls emptied, he too would face the mirror. He too would hear the echo of the choices he had made. The mirror of guilt is merciless. It does not care for justifications, excuses, or the logic of survival. It shows only the truth. You did what you did. You chose what you chose. And the consequences of that choice have shed themselves into your reflection. This is why guilt is more dangerous than fear, more corrosive than anger. Fear can be overcome. Anger can be redirected. But guilt lingers. It eats at your confidence, erodes your will, poisons your sense of self. In time, it convinces you that you no longer deserve redemption, that you no longer have the right to move forward. And yet, guilt is also a teacher. For some, it becomes the weight that crushes them into despair, leaving them broken and paralyzed. But for others, guilt is the mirror that forces them to see clearly, perhaps for the first time. It is the hand that rips away illusions, the voice that whispers, "This is who you truly are. This is what you are capable of." There are two paths when standing before this mirror. One is denial, turning away, burying the truth, pretending the reflection is false. But denial is only temporary. The mirror waits. The other is acceptance, to face what you have done, to recognize that the guilt is not punishment, but consequence. That path is harder, for it demands strength, humility, and the courage to live with scars that will never fully fade. But whether you deny or accept, guilt does not vanish. It changes shape, transforms, lingers in the shadows of your choices. And those shadows, they always follow. Because guilt never travels alone. Behind it comes something colder, something sharper, something inevitable. Consequences. The punishment that reality delivers for the choices you made. Guilt is the mirror. Consequences are the hammer that shatters it. And so, as we leave the mirror of guilt, we step into those shadows, where every action demands payment, and where the true cost of power, love, and betrayal finally comes due. And the mirror does not lie. It only waits for you to look long enough to break. Consequences always arrive, but they do not strike blindly. They favor those who command, and they punish those who lose control. This is the harshest lesson of all. Power does not belong to the strongest, nor to the most intelligent. It belongs to the one who can control himself, others, and the story everyone believes. A kingdom is not only made of stone walls and soldiers. A kingdom exists wherever control is established. In your home, in your relationships, in your private thoughts. The question is not whether you live in a kingdom. The question is, are you the ruler or the ruled? Control is the silent currency of all human interaction. You may not see it, but you feel it in every conversation, every glance, every hesitation. It is there when a friend avoids a subject because they fear your reaction. It is there when a lover shifts their tone to soften a truth. It is there when a subordinate obeys without protest, not because of respect, but because of calculation. Control is not loud. It does not announce itself. Like an invisible hand, it moves the pieces without revealing the player. But here lies the paradox. The kingdom of control is never secure. Every ruler fears rebellion. Every manipulator fears exposure. Every strategist fears the one variable they cannot master, human unpredictability. Machiavelli himself warned of this. It is better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both. But he also knew fear could turn to hatred, and hatred, once sparked, can burn down an empire overnight. So control must be maintained like fire, not too weak or it fades, not too strong or it consumes its wielder. A king who controls through cruelty eventually awakens conspirators in his own court. A lover who controls through jealousy eventually drives their partner into betrayal. A mind that controls itself through denial eventually cracks under its own pressure. Consider this. Guilt, as we saw in the mirror, enslaves. But control is the attempt to mask that enslavement. A guilty ruler doubles his grip on the throne. A guilty parent dictates every movement of a child. A guilty lover smothers with affection disguised as vigilance. They believe control will silence their guilt. But in truth, it only amplifies it, because every act of control reveals the very weakness they are desperate to hide. Control, then, is not freedom. It is bondage with a crown. And yet, without it, we collapse into chaos. Here is the eternal prison of humanity. We cannot live without control, but we destroy ourselves by chasing too much of it. The kingdom of control stretches into the smallest corners of life. Have you ever noticed how silence in an argument is a form of control? How withdrawal of affection wounds more deeply than words? How timing, the decision to wait, to delay, to withhold, bends another's will more powerfully than 1,000 commands? These are not accidents. These are the strategies of rulers disguised as ordinary people. But remember this. Every kingdom is built on fear of collapse. The higher the throne, the more fragile the crown. For in the pursuit of control, one must constantly ask, what happens when the subjects no longer obey? What happens when the mask of power slips? What happens when the kingdom you've built turns out to be a cage you cannot escape? Machiavelli whispered the answer centuries ago, though few dared to listen. Control is never permanent. At best, it is borrowed. At worst, it is an illusion. The wise ruler accepts this, adapting with each shifting tide. The foolish ruler denies it, and is destroyed. So as we walk deeper into this forbidden lecture, ask yourself, whose kingdom are you living in right now? Is it your own? Or are you obeying the invisible commands of someone else? A partner, a leader, and a hidden voice within you. The truth is unsettling. Most people never rule their own kingdom. They live and die as subjects, their lives dictated by the fears, ambitions, and manipulations of others. And when they finally try to seize the crown, it is already too late. The kingdom of control is vast. But like all kingdoms, it has borders. And beyond those borders lies something darker, something ungoverned, something that does not bow to kings, queens, or princes. What lies beyond? It is not loyalty. It is not obedience. It is not even power. It is chaos. And chaos is the enemy that no ruler has ever truly defeated. For every kingdom, no matter how strong, will one day face the night when control is shattered, and only chaos remains. Control gives you the illusion of safety. You build walls around yourself, weave lies into armor, and tighten your grip until your hands tremble. You tell yourself, if I hold on tightly enough, the kingdom will not fall. But then comes the sound. A knock. Faint at first, then louder. Not from outside your walls, but from somewhere deeper, somewhere inside. That is when you realize the most dangerous enemy is not beyond your gates. It is hidden within your own soul. This is the last door. The door you should never open. The door no crown can secure, no strategy can outwit, no betrayal can prepare you for. Behind it lies not fear, not guilt, not even obsession. Behind it lies the truth you have spent your whole life trying to bury. Every ruler, every lover, every manipulator, every victim, eventually they arrive here. For all their battles and victories, all their masks and power plays, this door stands waiting, silent, patient, eternal. And when you stand before it, you will feel the temptation. You will feel the pull of curiosity. What could be hidden that is so forbidden, so final, that even I should not look? That curiosity is the whisper of destructi, On, because once you open this door, you cannot close it again. Think of the tyrant who, in his hunger for absolute power, uncovers the hollow truth, that his throne was never respected, only feared, and that fear was borrowed time. Think of the lover who tears apart the beloved's secrets, only to discover that the betrayal was not theirs, but his own obsession projected outward. Think of the man or woman who digs so deeply into themselves that they uncover not purity, not enlightenment, but a beast, raw, primal, unchained, that has been steering their life in silence all along. This is the final cruelty of human nature. We believe we are ruled by conscience, reason, and morality. But behind the last door lies the hunger that all other masks were designed to conceal, a hunger for destruction, for dominance, for chaos. The animal beneath the strategist, the shadow beneath the saint. Machiavelli, had he written of this, would not have used the language of politics. He would have called it necessity. The dark truth is that men do not simply crave power. They crave the annihilation of limits. To know not just that they control, but that nothing can control them. Behind the last door lies not freedom, but the sickness of wanting more than freedom, the urge to become untouchable, even if it means tearing the world apart. And yet, people open it. Again and again they reach for the handle. Lovers who demand to know everything about their beloved, even if the truth destroys them. Leaders who spy, betray, and corrupt until their people despise them. Ordinary men and women who cannot bear the thought of mystery, who rip open every curtain and every wound until only ruin is left. They open the door because they cannot stand not knowing, because silence terrifies them more than destruction, because they believe, falsely, that truth will set them free. But freedom is not what waits here. What waits is revelation, the kind you cannot forget, the kind that stains your soul. What waits is the knowledge that the worst monster you feared was not someone else, but yourself. That is why I call it the last door you shouldn't open. Not because it is locked, but because once it swings wide, you realize it was never a door at all. It was a mirror. And what you see in that mirror is the self you hoped never to meet. The question is not whether you will reach this door. You already have. The question is whether you will turn the handle, whether you will dare to confront the shadow that has always followed you, silent, patient, waiting for the moment you are too weak to resist curiosity. But remember, knowledge does not return to innocence. Once you open this door, there is no going back to safety, to lies, to comfort. This is the moment where kingdoms fall, where lovers part, where minds shatter. This is the point of no return. And beyond this point, beyond this forbidden threshold, there is only one truth left to reveal. The truth that ends the lecture. The truth that no man should ever hear, but once heard, can never be forgotten. And when you stand at the last door, remember this: it was never the world that kept it closed. It was you.